Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Calligoen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Bend It Like Beckham.
Oh God, you had to pronounce the H. I don't think
Beckham.
think that's how they say it. Anyway, yes, it's the 2002 coming of age pick / rom-com, which is one more from my list of movies with romance that didn't really need a romance.
Yeah.
In fact, I find the romance kind of superfluous to enjoying the film.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that and some other things. Now, Dave, you told me that you had seen this before, right? But not nearly as many times as I had, right?
I saw it in the theaters when it came out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's 22 years ago. So
yeah,
basically, you hadn't seen it in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, well, what did you know about this going in?
I watched it in the theaters 20 years ago.
So nothing. You forgot it.
No, I mean, like, what? So the thing I remember most about this movie, and I was shocked at how little a part of the movie it was, is like, I remember in my head, if you had asked me before we watched this, I would have told you a significant amount of the plot time is dedicated to her overcoming her insecurities about her leg scar.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It takes like a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember this being a bigger deal in this movie.
Yeah, I noticed that with a lot of movies that require characters to get over some insecurity or something. When you watch it the first time, you're like, oh, wow, that must have been really tough. She worked so hard to get past whatever. And then when you watch it as an adult, you're like, that would have taken like several years and like a couple therapy sessions. And she just, boom, that's fine. That's not how that works. So more of, it's a movie. But yes, you're right. You're right.
It's not how I remember it working.
Well, nothing is. Yeah. Well, it's like, you remember the hill in the backyard of your house being 17 feet tall and it was 17 inches tall. Like everything is warped when you're younger versus when you're older.
But also like the way that it's overcome is just like super practical. Like a person with a debilitating injury that's ended their footballing career just says, hey, does that affect your game? No. Then get over it. Effectively, not in those words, but basically.
And that's when she begins to fall in love because that's the basis of a really good relationship.
The tough love she's missing at home.
Yeah. Anyway, if you don't know what we're talking about, so this is a British Indian movie. It feels very British to me. Yeah. It's not anything that's like, well, we need to tweak this so American audiences will like. No, there's no decoding things for Americans, which I like.
But that was also at this time was pretty popular. Like Full Monty had come over maybe 3 or 4 years before, or 5 years before, and that completely unapologetic in its complete garbled
snatch
and
which I think was a little different.
Some of that's deliberate, but like the one I remember the most is the Full Monty because I literally I was working in a video store at or around the time it came out, and I got it and I took it home, and I did not. The first pass through that movie, nothing. I had no idea what anybody was saying, especially Carlisle. Like nothing. No idea what was going on.
It might as well have been in a completely foreign language.
It was like
the body language is telling the story.
Train Spotting was bad, but this was worse. Like Train Spotting, I was able to get through it. And kind of figure it out. But this one, it was.
Those are two movies that I've never seen. I really have some gaps in my knowledge.
I think it was kind of a popular thing to sort of unapologetically bring British movies over here,
and
I think
possibly.
in some cases European movies in general, but British movies over here and just be like, deal with it.
Well, yes, and frankly, it's good for Americans to be told not everything is about you.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Well, and
watch the movie.
Shortly after this, Amelie would come over subtitled, and make a splash.
Well, I think subtitles are bare minimum.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, not like there would have been, there were other movies like, say, what is it, Vanilla Sky?
Yes.
with Tom Cruise, where they just were not confident in or the Vanishing,
yeah.
where they were just like not confident in American audiences, so
And
they
all
just
the
remade the movie with
and all the
American
K
actors.
horror movies. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's
The Ring and stuff.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I enjoy the Britishness of this. Just
And it
on
is
its
like,
own, and I like Americans being told no, we're not
oh,
going to
totally,
cater
yeah.
to you.
And it's
So,
like it's such a specific British thing.
yes,
You know, like this it would be like you know, like making a movie about Polish people in Wisconsin.
mm-hmm.
You know, like it's a specific group of immigrants who came to a country and are in the process of sort of integrating, but also still preserving their own culture. And yeah, like it's not a story, like you can't tell this same story in America
No,
with
this
an
wouldn't
Indian
translate.
family.
This
Like,
wouldn't translate at all.
yeah.
No, and there's very not to deviate too much, but yeah, there's a lot of camera shots that show like, you know, oh, they're all in one backyard having a big party, and next door the lady's hanging her laundry. I mean, like it's very clear, like they are
Yeah.
in the UK, but they are not
Of the UK.
necessarily. Like that sounds terrible. That sounds
No,
like
yeah.
I'm being anti-immigrant, and I don't mean that to be that way, but like it's people talk about you don't want a country to be a melting pot because everything then is the same. It's like a stew.
Yeah.
So the carrots are in the stew, but they're still carrots. Like it's that.
But
So-
also, yeah, I think it's also a glimpse of a country in the process of figuring that part of it out. You
Yeah.
know, it's like when you watch something like Gangs of New York or something, where like
Mhm.
the Irish were the immigrants that everyone was ostracizing
Yeah.
at that time. You know, good luck picking them out of like a lineup.
Yes.
You know, if you,
And then
if you
in
had
40
to.
years, Italians came over and
Right.
they're like, well, the Irish are pale, so that's okay.
Right, exactly.
We're
Like,
fine with them now.
So it's seeing a country in this stage of integrating a population into their, you know, and we're like a generation on from this movie now at this point,
Mhm.
where, you know, there's actually like, I would love almost not a revisit necessarily of this movie, but
Well,
you know,
mm,
but you know, a check-in on where is the integration of
Well,
the sort of Southeast Asian.
I think that curve is not a smooth one. I think
Oh,
there's
sure.
ups and downs. And
They got a prime minister, right? Like,
oh, well, as we know, having an elected leader of color solves
yes,
everything.
It does.
So
it ends racism.
There we go. It's done.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, just to give you a brief plot summary, because of course, per usual, we just barged in and
Oh yeah, yeah.
just, yeah, if you
If you
haven't
haven't
seen this
watched this
movie,
movie,
you're,
yeah,
you're lying. Well,
yeah.
first of all, if you haven't, you should, because it's a lot of fun,
yeah,
right? Lots of funny lines, and it's just interesting to see, like I said, the British details and the Indian details and the fish out of water. I think all the characters are fish out of water at some point. It's a sports movie, which falls into my category of dance movies and where it's just things that people doing things with their bodies that I could never do ever. So it's just fun to watch. There's a lot of great music. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
So our main character is Jess Minder. I'm not sure if it's spelled Jess Minder or Jas Minder. I've seen it both ways, but she goes by Jess. And she is like 18-ish, just finished up high school or whatever the British equivalent is. And she's sort of at loose ends while she figures out what to do next. This all, like, I'm remembering my college experience. I had decided where I was going by like February of my senior year.
Yeah.
But apparently she's like waiting for her exam results and she's deciding in like August, which I'm like, but okay, sure, fine. The movie has to happen. Okay, fine.
Yeah. And also, like, we don't know anything about British culture
But I would like
if
to,
that's-
is the point.
if
So
that's the
I have questions. I'm not the American who needs everything to be spoon fed to me, but I have questions. Anyway, so she's from an Indian immigrant family, Sikh specifically. Which I know very little about, except that the men generally wear turbans and don't cut their facial hair. I did notice, jumping ahead, there was a scene where they're at Jess's sister's wedding, and some of the men, I noticed it too late, and then there was no more shots of this, but they have like bandanas on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, I mean, as in like, I got the souvenir bandana from a camping trip, and I'm just it seemed like, I wonder, is that a thing at religious services where like here's this disposable one, just put something on. Like you hear about Catholic women in the 40s and 50s in the US would like pin a handkerchief to their head as a head covering.
Mhm.
And at bar and bat mitzvahs, there's like disposable yarmulkes in the back, and this is just like the thing that we do. Anyway, this completely went over your head. You didn't notice that at all. Okay.
No.
Anyway, so her parents are rather strict, as first generation immigrants want to be, and Jess and her sister are typical second generation kids who are rebelling a little bit. Jess is pretty good at soccer, and she ends up getting sort of recruited by another member of a women's soccer team, just at like the local rec center or something. And they're simultaneously like casual enough that she can just recruit her from playing in the park, but good enough that they're getting scouted by pros and by college scouts. So I don't really understand how that works. But
the way that like soccer works it's probably, I have no idea. So I'm going to just forewarn, but I always think of it as like kind of analogous to the American baseball system where you have like single A and double A and triple A and then the pros.
Yeah.
But I know like in Europe, you can move up leagues and down leagues, like teams can actually shift, and all that. But it feels like, this is like a single A team that, you can kind of just walk onto if you're good enough. And then that ends up feeding. And also I think it's a commentary a little bit on the progression of women's soccer, because America is held up as this like bastion of women's soccer.
Which was, and I meant to look that up.
Well,
because they're talking about they have women's pro teams, and I don't know if they do anymore in the U.S.
I'm not 100% sure. But they were coming off of 96 and 2000, where women's soccer and soccer in general really started to kind of take over and had its moment.
Yeah, Brandy Chastain showed the world her sports bra, and people were like, "Oh, yes." But seeing the U.S. held up as this bastion of equality for female athletes, I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
I remember.
But in soccer, like that's the thing. Yeah. In Europe, and just the rest of the world, it's completely male dominated, and in America, they have recently gotten a soccer league off its feet and it managed to stand on its own for a few years, but they have had many false starts with soccer in America, men's soccer in America, but women's soccer just always seems to be this, have this foothold here that it doesn't seem to have in the rest of the world, or didn't seem to have then in the rest of the world. I don't know. Women's soccer might be huge in Europe right now. I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. Well, your point about it being sort of like baseball and there's different A levels, that's probably a good one. And then, you can go into the pros right out of high school. And I imagine there's some people who go to college and play in college and then go, there's all sorts of paths. So that makes more sense. But and the friend is Juliette Jules, played by Keira Knightley, which I think was her first film role. It's kind of hard for me to imagine a world in which Keira Knightley is not a movie star, but before this movie came out, that was the world that we lived in. Yeah,
it was certainly the movie that introduced her to America.
Yeah, she was only 16 here, which is, she really does look, I mean, she always looks young, but she looks incredibly young here. So, Jess's parents don't want her playing sports, and they come up with all kinds of reasons. First, it's, you'll show off the scars on your legs. And I thought it was a modesty thing, but it's not, because plenty of the other Indian characters are wearing shorts and short skirts and showing off all kinds of skin. So it's just the scar. And then it's, you shouldn't be playing with boys. You shouldn't, your coach is a boy. We can't do that. You need to stop playing sports and learn how to cook and all that. And there's a million reasons, really. And she sneaks behind their back, not very well, because she keeps getting caught.
Well, like, she doesn't do it very well, but also, like, they're just horrible. Like, you know, after she gets caught doing it and they forbid her from ever doing it again, like, the very next day she's allowed to go on, like, a trip to a cousin's or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, it's just sort of like the worst sort of resistance.
Yes.
She's bad at hiding it, and the parents are bad at, like, keeping her from doing it.
Well, it's like they said, we gave her a stern talking to, so clearly she won't do this thing that she really wants to do. Like, do you know children? That's not how it works. Yeah. And then, like, she has a cold, she'll stay home. Like, No, what that means is you as a parent have to make a sacrifice and say, well, we don't trust you, so I'm going to miss this thing that I want to do. And then you add a nice healthy dollop of guilt to it as well, which is real fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's bad at sneaking around, but she makes an impression on the coach and the team and et cetera, et cetera. But it finally comes to a head where like, no, you really can't do this anymore. And your sister's wedding is this day and you need to be at that instead. And then at the end, her father's like, go play in the big game and miss part of the wedding and come back. And she does and saves the day. I don't really understand how she's so good when she has never been on a team before. But again, that's just movie magic happened. She's just preternaturally good. And she and Jules are both offered scholarships to a university in the U.S., which again, the U.S. is like the bastion of equality for female sports. And her father finally lets her go. And then everybody's happy. The end. My favorite scene in the whole movie, though, is the very, very last one. So her father says, and a lot of the details of Jess's life are based on the director's life. Gurinder Chadha is her name, and she's made a lot of movies that have this very specific British and Indian mixture. Her parents were born in Kenya, in Nairobi, and then moved from there to the UK when political upheaval happened. And that apparently is what happened with Jess's parents too. And the thing about the scar on Jess's leg actually happened to that actress. Like that was a scar that she had, and they just wrote that.
Yeah, that's it seemed like that was just the thing. Like they needed to explain it because it was going to be a distraction otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the father tells the story about when I was in Nairobi, I played cricket all the time and I loved it and I was good at it, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I came to the UK, and they wouldn't let me. They made fun of my turban and my beard, and I was so ashamed. And so I said, I'm never playing cricket again. And I'm the only one who suffered for that. And I don't want Jess to feel the same way. Now, watching it this time, I was like, I don't think that's really a corollary to what your daughter's experiencing, but okay. If that is what's going to make you let her do what she wants, okay, that's fine. But anyway, then the very last scene, you see him in his cricket whites on the front lawn playing cricket with his son-in-law, the sister's husband, and Joe, the coach, who apparently has been accepted as Jess's boyfriend. And I don't especially care about Joe, like, whatever. She's going off to another country. She's going to hook up with a lot of boys. Like, she's not waiting around for Joe, but whatever. But just the fact that the father opened up and started doing this thing again that he loved and had told himself he couldn't do it. Like, that's my favorite part, honestly. Like, I feel like a little bit of a traitor to feminism by having my favorite part be that a man is emotionally fulfilled, but that really is the best. And it's quietly done. Like, if you aren't really paying attention to the end, you wouldn't see it. But I really love that the father is just like, nope, I'm going to do this thing that I love. The end.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the plot. But, and the whole, the idea of South Asian athletes breaking into English sports is all. It's not a true story, but it's based on some actual pro athletes who were big in England at the time, and of course, who I don't know at all, but a lot of it draws on real life. So, but yeah, I said, I feel like a traitor to feminism. This falls into the early 2000s, like, girl power movies, in that it doesn't necessarily hold up to strict feminist scrutiny, but it feels really good at the time. It's similar to, Blue Crush and Bring It On, and I don't even remember what, a lot of things that we've watched here that I love, even though they're frothy and not very substantive, but they're fun. It occurred to me watching it this time. So both Jess and Jules are super into soccer and not at all into boys. And Jess's sister, by contrast, is very into boys, one particular boy, her fiance, but you get the idea that she was super boy crazy before that. And she is clothes and makeup, and she's talking about she wants to dye her hair and get in colored contacts, and all of her friends are so they're very by contrast. And I thought, well, I don't really like it that we're setting it up that if a girl is athletic, she's not feminine, she's not into boys. You have to choose one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see it be possible for a girl to do both, to like clothes and makeup, and also like sports, and also like boys, or some combination thereof. And and both Jess and Jules are suspected of being gay, and there are a lot of people out there who say that's really what this movie should be: is they have a love for soccer and a love for each other. Which
Sure.
Again, I don't really care about the Joe romance, so okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And Jules's mom's reaction to this whole misunderstanding in the lesbian subplot are some of the best moments of the movie. Like, not super comfortable now looking at it 20 plus years on, but she's hilarious. But yeah, I feel like this is not a super nuanced feminist look at it, when you're basically saying, hey, girls, you can be like Pinky and all you want to do is be married and have babies and worry about clothes, or you can be like Jess and all you want to do is play sports. Like, you can have both.
Yeah, but on the one hand, it feels movies like this, like, I don't know what you want to call them, like pop feminism or bubblegum feminism or something. It is that sort of like, it's that baby steps kind of thing.
Yeah.
Girl can be sporty, like,
Yeah.
the
No, that's
inverse
fair.
of that
That's
is like
fair.
man can be sensitive,
Yeah.
and not gay, like girl can be sporty and not gay. Which is about as much as it gets into.
That's fair. As we're recording this, the Golden Globes just happened, and there's been a lot of discussion about the Barbie movie, which I will be showing to you at some point this year. And that was similar, I thought, in that it's not a groundbreaking take at all. To me anyway, because I took a women's studies class and I've been in the world, and this is not new. But to some women who just were not paying attention, it is super groundbreaking. So I'm glad that this exists for them. Yeah. But I can't off the top of my head think of a lot of movies where a girl is allowed to be all these things and a boy is allowed to be all these things. But anyway, they probably are. I don't know. Maybe I take them for granted. I don't know.
On some level, this movie does demonstrate that, because when they all go out together in Germany with the team, like, they all get dolled up and stuff. And so while they are like secondary characters, there are characters on the team who seem to be into all of those things. Like, there's even a specific call out of like one of the girls being promiscuous and being just like, yeah, okay. Like not a thing. Like, no one is, shaming her or anything. So it's like this bite size. Like, sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm watching something or reading something or whatever, where I am already deep into the subject, that like, this is going to be somebody's first one of these.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, there's a lot of stuff. This is totally off topic, but there's a lot of wrestling fans right now talking about the Iron Claw movie about the Von Erichs, and saying like, oh, this is anachronistic, or this is not, and this is not realistic. But that's how you get stuff to a mainstream audience who isn't already in the know.
Yeah.
There's a reason that while The Wrestler had great success, it was still ultimately looked at as that indie wrestling movie, that independent film that was about wrestling, because it actually did treat it in a way that a wrestling fan would.
A little more complex.
Right. And sort of delved into it and didn't sugarcoat it. But yeah, a movie like this, it's going to be some, 14-year-old or 16 or 18 or 20-year-olds first look at this sort of, again, like, be sporty is okay. It you don't have to define yourself by pink and dresses and makeup, and
you have other options.
Lusting after a husband.
Well, that's
so
fair.
it's always a weird balancing act.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't hurt that the actresses who play Jess and Jules are drop dead gorgeous, even when they are sweaty and they have, game hair and all this, so that doesn't hurt. Apparently, they both went through extensive, like they trained for like 3 months with a soccer coach, and they got to be very good. And there's no doubles when they're playing soccer. They're really playing soccer in the movie. I did think though, and the rest of the team, Mel, the captain,
Yeah.
she was a pop singer at the time, but everybody else is actual soccer players, and they definitely look different. So they didn't doll everybody else up the way that they did these two. I thought, but
yeah, it is always tough in a movie about sports when you cast a bunch of sports.
When you bring in actual athletes, you're like,
yeah,
she doesn't look like Kate Bosworth. No, she doesn't.
you gotta sprinkle them in, in the right sorts of ways. Like, a movie like the Adam Sandler, the remake of The Longest Yard, where they had like Michael Irving and they had these guys who are well-known football athletes that kind of come in and fill in these positions, but they surrounded them with a bunch of legitimate actors and or athlete, like Stone Cold is in that movie. So you want it to be as authentic as possible, but the truth of the matter is not every really good soccer player is a good speaker or a good a good actor or looks good, or
we've definitely talked about that, how sometimes when non-actors have lines in a film, it just takes you out, and but and I didn't think that happened here, but they definitely they don't look like actresses because they're not, but whatever.
Which it's a good, everybody is believable.
Sure. Yeah.
I think even the professional actors are believable as being the age they are in the place that they are. So, that works out at least. It's not like they didn't have someone who was just far and away outside of, the like, there's no way that this woman would be here
it's not
at this time.
It's not like 90210 where you have a 30-year-old playing a high school.
Right. Yeah.
Although Jess, the actress, apparently here was like 25.
Sure.
But she looks youthful.
Yeah, she can
so,
pass that.
Well, and she's short, so
it just helps.
That does it. She seriously though, she is drop dead gorgeous. She was on ER for several years, and she's still like I guess she's a little bit older than me. I'm sure she probably looks 20 years younger than me right now.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Like, it's not fair, but anyway.
Yeah. But no, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, and the whole movie, honestly, is different kinds of beautiful. I mean, beautiful actresses, but like colorful and fun, and the music's fun, and there's a lot of just joyful movement, I think.
Yeah.
There's a scene at the end where, so Jess has been given permission to skip part of it's the wedding reception, basically. Skip the part of the wedding and go play. And so there's shots of people dancing at the wedding versus her and her teammates playing, and same music over both of it. And it's so like, it's fun to see people moving in a way that they enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
And like the father says at one point, 2 daughters made happy on the same day. What more can a father ask for? And they're being made happy and expressing it in different kinds of movement. And it's very sweet.
Yeah. And also movies like this always remind me that, like, while I have some kind of culture, it doesn't go as deep as because I don't have it. Like, my culture is rooted soundly in like where I'm from and my immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have this like even an Irish person who traces their lineage back there and still, acknowledges that, like, nobody in my family knows what we are. Like, probably some Scottish and English and Irish and a little bit of everything, probably some German or something thrown in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have this cultural identity, and movies like this always remind me and kind of make me a little bit sad for not having a more pronounced cultural identity. Like, my cultural identity is, fatback and biscuits and gravy and, like it's the stuff that we adapted and adopted once we came here. It's not the this rich tradition of hundreds of years of culture and civilization that existed in the place we came from. Like,
Yeah.
my family didn't uh, bring traditions and continue to respect those traditions when they came to America. They came here and created new traditions, even though some of them are
Well,
rooted in those old traditions.
yeah.
Because like my family spent some time in the North Carolina mountains, and famously, the North Carolina mountains were um, inhabited by a lot of people from Scotland,
Hmm.
and you still to this day have these Scottish festivals and stuff. That's the kind of stuff I would like to be a part of. I would
Yeah.
like to be able to know my, like, tartan or whatever,
Hmm.
for my kilt color, and I
Hmm.
would like to have this tradition of like, oh, my dad did the caber toss or
Hmm.
whatever, that sort of stuff that I don't have, that this family has
Yeah.
and can revel in.
Well,
Whereas I like, what I can do is like square dance or like
yeah, well, like we were
country
talking about,
line
yeah, because
dance
everybody
or
our
some shit.
age learned to square dance, and
Yes.
when we were 9, and then probably forgot about it.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, that's like, you learned it in the Midwest. We
Yeah.
learned it in the South, and like I know of people who learned it,
I
all over America. But like it was
Yeah.
a thing to, but nobody was square dancing by the time we were learning square dancing.
Actually, my parents, around the time that I was learning square dance in school, I mean, we're talking like 2 PE classes. Like, this is not intense
Yeah.
or anything, but they went to a square dancing party.
Really?
And my mom remembered that I was horrified that she was going to, quote, dance with other men, because you do the, like, switch your
Yeah,
partner,
the do-si-do.
whatever. And I was like, you're touching other men besides dad? What? Which is, I don't know why. And these were like my friends' dads, like not anyone remotely interesting or, anything. Sorry to my friends' dads, but,
Yeah. Well, and being a couple of years younger than you, and within a couple of years of me learning square dancing, at least here in where I was
Oh.
from, line dancing had
Yeah.
completely taken it over.
Yeah, it was a little bit,
Like
a little bit where I was.
maybe there
too, but
were technically people still square dancing in 1989 or whatever.
there's always
but-
somewhere at the rec center, first Saturday of the month, and people come from 50 miles away, and it's, but it's very, it's not mainstream. It's very
And
niche,
here in
but-
North Carolina, it would have been
Like-
shagging.
yeah,
you
which
know,
is
yeah.
not the British meaning.
No, you don't shag a bird.
No. But I think back to, didn't have traditions. I think what happened, because, we talked about a couple minutes ago, we talked about at first, Irish people were the immigrants that got discriminated against. And then darker skinned people, to be honest, Italians and Greeks and people from the Mediterranean and elsewhere came, and they were more different than the norm. And so they were like, okay, well, the Irish people you can get. So they were able to assimilate.
Yeah, and the Irish people were like, "Oh, well, let's not going to squander this opportunity."
Right.
Let's
So
blend in.
it's a little bit of you willingly give up some of your differences to fit in with the majority people. And then just as you live with the majority people, like, oh, well, we can't go back for the New Year's Day, blah, blah, blah. So we'll just stay here and we'll do, and you just gradually lose them, not on purpose. It just happens. And then, because you hear often about first generation immigrants, this is the pattern of behavior. And then second is this, and then third is this. And then, but you don't talk about 13th generation, which is essentially us. Like, I don't know how many generations, but more than 3 for me. Because by then they've assimilated in and they don't have that connection anymore, which I do. I agree. I feel a little sad about it. My cultural thing is being Irish American and being Catholic, and I'm really the only practicing Catholic in my family anymore. And Irish American is, tenuous at best. So yeah, I do feel a little bit lost sometimes. And when I watch movies like this about this vibrant ethnic and cultural and religious community, I'm a lot envious, but
Yeah, no, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was actually thinking about it during watching this movie of like, but don't sell yourself short. Saying this to myself, because you do have like, I have North Carolina barbecue, and I have like, so I do have these things that I can sort of fall back on. And like I said, biscuits and gravy and whatever, all the stuff that kind of, as I start to think about it and I start to think like, yeah, I don't have these vibrantly colored, silken costumes and dances. And, so somehow everybody knows how to do the shoulder thing,
Yeah.
like I don't have all that, but like, like I can
There are things that you take for granted
do the
that are
electric slide.
more. I can't. At one point
you
I
just
knew
follow
how,
the
but
instructions.
all I know is boogie, boogie, boogie. That's all I hear in there.
Yeah. So, I caught myself thinking that and then being like, hey, like it's not as bad as you think, but like, it's just so much cooler when you have all of this like old stuff and, like these old traditions and these customary things that are, beautiful and like bespoke and, so, interesting visually and culturally. And, meanwhile, I'm like, best I can do is put on a Civil War reenactor's outfit or something.
Please don't. Well, I think it's, I just had a thought and then I lost it. Oh, okay. I know what it was. So we've talked about how, so we are in the South and it's very common here for schools and offices and businesses to be closed on Good Friday, which is odd to me because this is a majority Protestant area and many Protestant denominations don't really care about Good Friday. Catholics do. But so to me, it's a day of worship. But I have said, if I'm given the day off, I'm not going to take it as seriously as if I have to take a vacation day or figure out how I'm going to fit it into my regular work day. And I think there is something to be said for when you have to go out of your way to keep your tradition, whether it's cultural, religious, whatever, you are more intentional about it and almost more, I don't know, maybe more devout about it. Maybe that's not the way to put it. But if it's just like, oh yeah, everyone gets Good Friday off, I got to go to church at some point, then it's easy to just let it slide.
Yeah.
So I think that then being this larger, tighter knit immigrant community where everybody is distinct and there's no way to not be different, then they're more intentional about keeping up the customs.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? So yeah, which is not to say that everybody should have to work really hard to keep up their traditions, but sometimes I think when you do have to, it remains important to you. Yeah. Things that are too easy, it's real easy to just take them for granted and not put in the work anymore. So
yeah, but for sure.
Yeah. Fun facts about this movie. So you said, if there was a sequel, there wouldn't be. There is apparently some talk of having a sequel. Now, some talk is probably along the lines of they said to the director, hey, would you ever consider a sequel? And she was like, yeah, sure, maybe. So who knows? Right. I don't, Right. But like, I think that what I read, it was something about, I guess the British team did well in the Women's World Cup. And so she was like, well, there's more interest, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know. But like, would that be super fun? Yes. So I don't know.
Yeah. But I feel like you do have to, it's so easy to,
well, it's the My Big Fat Greek Wedding syndrome. Like, no one was asking for this. Does the story really need to be told again?
Yeah, or even more like these movies where they wait 20 years and do like Matrix Resurrection or whatever it's called. Like sometimes it's just, it's been too long and there's been too much sort of fanficking sort of the whole situation. And a lot of times with stuff like this, you do have a dedicated base of fans, even if they're not like making, Facebook groups and Reddit, subreddits about it.
Not like West Wing fans
today,
that are real nerds.
Today, but you have this dedicated group of people who would consider this, one of their top tier movies, and they've got their own like head canons and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you come in and you sort of solidify stuff, it becomes this thing of like, oh, well, that's not how I hoped this character would end up. So it's almost thankless.
That's true. You're never going to please everybody.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about like the Star Wars sequels, the most recent 3, like there was basically nothing that they could have put on offer there short of making, a million movies with the exact way that you wanted Luke to handle the saber and, the way that, how you wanted this to happen and that. So yeah, it would be great and fun as someone who is like not even a casual fan of this movie, but like I said, watched it in the theaters and enjoyed it. It'd be cool to see
well,
revisit.
There is another way that you could revisit.
Oh my gosh.
It was made into a musical.
Oh, that's not okay.
Seriously?
How does that?
Well, now, do I think it needs to be a musical?
Right.
No, the world was not clamoring for this. But I don't know. Like, I think it's well suited. Like, there's, song and dance and costumes and all these things.
Yeah. No, it worked as a musical.
It was only ran for 9 months on the West End in London. But here's my favorite bit of casting.
Oh, Lord.
Joe, the coach, the romantic lead, for reasons. Guess who plays him?
Oh,
you have seen this actor in some things.
I don't know.
The guy who played Vecna on the last season of Stranger Things.
I don't know.
Okay, well, creepy, blonde, skinny guy.
Yeah.
So look up Vecna. That is playing Joe, Jamie Campbell Bower or something like that. Yeah. So I desperately want to see some scenes from that because that would be fantastic.
Yeah, forget about Hamilton. I want Disney to run this.
Right. Yeah. Also, another fun fact. This movie, this version, not the musical version, was the first Western programming shown on North Korean television. It was something about North Korea and the UK had a trade agreement, and to mark the anniversary of this trade agreement, they were going to show a British movie on North Korean TV, and this is what they chose.
Wow, who chose that?
I don't know. Maybe one of the Kim Jong, was it Un? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a thing for soccer. I don't know. But they had to take some of the parts out. Is what I was told. Probably all the discussion about Sporty Spice not having a fellow, and just because I wear trackies and play sport doesn't make me a lesbian, and all that kind of stuff. But that tickles me. I'm going to be giggling about that for like a week. I love it.
Yeah. One thing I do remember thinking at the time when I saw this movie originally, and I still think now, is that David Beckham is underutilized in this movie.
Yes.
Which is to say he is literally seen from so far away that
and I don't think that's
probably
even him.
isn't even him.
I don't think it is. No.
It's a lady with the right haircut and a black mini dress and a tall, slender gentleman who looks athletic with a bald head.
And they're seen from afar and they're walking through the airport and
it's them. Yeah. And like there should have been a dream sequence where he like encourages her.
Right. Well, and they have this. So at the beginning, Jess is doing kind of a dream sequence where she's playing soccer with him and she saves the day. And like, it's this really terrible bit of film editing where they splice her in. I don't know if I'm hoping it's terrible on purpose.
Maybe. I don't know. It's also like for that time, it would have just been like compositing at that time. It was on the cusp of everything going digital.
They were able to do better with Forrest Gump, which was 5 years before.
This was a Fox Searchlight movie, and I mean they do it well. There's a couple of really bad parts.
It's pretty bad.
Where it like gets really jumpy. Because I feel like you could have done it in such a way that you could have minimized it. Like you could have put like television filters on it.
Yeah.
Like CRT scan lines and like, the vignetting around the edges and like, made it look like a television broadcast, which would have sort of covered it up.
I don't know. I am choosing to believe that it was badly done on purpose just to make, like.
And it doesn't,
it's over.
It doesn't take away from the movie. It is.
No,
but yeah, like I feel just like a dream sequence where he's like, you got to bend it like me, or you got to bend life, not just the ball.
Well, they have all these. So she has posters of him all over her room, including on the ceiling above her bed. And she sits there and she talks to him, and which I don't think is a super effective device because she's like 17, 18. She's not 5, but whatever. But like if he just came down out of the poster and was cheering her on or whatever. That would have been fantastic. But he
Yes.
knew about the movie and was like, yeah, sure, use my name, it's fine, but didn't do any more than that. But yeah, I think that would have been super fun.
Yeah, and maybe it was a scenario like we were talking about of where like he really just wasn't an actor and would have just, brought the whole thing down or something.
I have heard, I didn't watch the documentary on Netflix about him, which I should, but I have heard that his voice does not match the way he looks. He kind of sounds like a chipmunk.
Yeah, like it's like a Mike Tyson situation.
Yes, so maybe that's
hurt his brand. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that is probably like it, when you have this sort of like thing where you can just sort of stand there and look like statuesque,
right,
and not speak.
Yeah.
And, and the moment that you speak, then you ruin it.
Right.
Because if he comes up into the dream sequence and he's like, you got to bend it like in real life. Not just bend the ball, bend your life around. It's not.
Then
it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Speaking of, so the title, Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah, which good luck if you don't know what that means.
Well, and I think at the time, a lot of people did not. There was this, now I said they didn't sugarcoat this and cater it to American audiences, except for there was talk of changing the title for American audiences to Move It Like Mia. Because there is, Jules has Mia Hamm posters all over her walls and is watching it, so there's that. I'm glad they did not.
Yeah.
Because then you have, with the focus more on Beckham, then you have room for this lovely little scene where Jess's friend Tony comes out to her.
Yeah.
She says something like, "Oh, I love Beckham. He's really great." And he says, "Oh, I love Beckham too." She's like, "Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?" No. I really love Beckham.
Yeah.
And she's just like, but you're Indian. How does that?
Right. You can't.
That doesn't work. I don't,
Yeah.
And then she's just like, okay, which is, feel for that guy. I don't think his parents are going to take it as well as she did, but it's very,
yeah.
That seems to me like a lovely way for someone to respond when you come out to them. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. But I was disappointed that they didn't because this would have been great for American audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, and they don't really do a good job of building this up. They have this little subplot of her trying to bend it like Beckham.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She does a kick where she goes around the clothes and she fails at it at one point. Then she gets instruction from Coach Dreamy or whatever.
Right.
And then there's a game-winning situation on the day of the wedding, and she is there and she bends. But I wanted them to just AR or ADR in a guy just going bend it, yelling as she runs up to the ball, and then they don't even shoot it well. They literally they shoot. She kicks.
It's like a ball's perspective.
And then it's ball perspective, and all of the on a penalty kick, they get to line up.
Yeah,
the teams get to line up to make a human blockade, and the opposing team and your teammates, and they just sort of slowly turn as it pans by, and then there's a shot of the goalie jumping and missing it.
Well, the goalie helpfully waits until the ball is in the net before she jumps to try to catch it. That's
because the human blockade is a combination of cutting off your ability to kick it there and your teammates helping to cut off the ability of the goalie to see it. They don't have this this would have been shot totally different. Even 5 years later, there would have been a CGI ball that spun through the air and motion lines and blurred background, and it would have bent and done all this crazy stuff. So it's there's some restraint there, but also they really didn't drive it home. But I really miss the guy just yelling "Bend it" to the point that several years ago there was an an independent game developer who was making a soccer game, like a top-down soccer game that was reminiscent of, I think it's Sensible Soccer, which is a soccer game that a lot of British people know because it was an early game that a lot of them played. And he wanted people to just do soccer call outs and record themselves doing them so that they could put those into the audience.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I did all mine
Oh my
in
gosh.
like a horrible like Cockney accent.
Yes. Please tell me you have that saved
I
somewhere.
probably do. And that was one of the ones that I did was just
Oh my
that accent going,
God.
Bendy, like that or something. Because I was like, I always remember thinking like, where was some random guy just yelling that out
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
in
that's
the
funny.
movie?
That's funny.
So I don't know if that was restraint or just a missed opportunity or what.
Yeah. I also enjoy though she has this vision of her mother and her sister and all these other family members who are from the wedding, all in the saris and the bangles and stuff, which is great. So, which reminds me, this is definitely a movie where like you wouldn't I wouldn't call this like a mid-credit scene. It's not like a Marvel type thing.
No.
But the credits are worth watching because it's a lot of, I mean, it's outtakes, but it's also just the cast sort of goofing around and they're singing along with Indian, I don't know what language, version of Hot 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 of the, what is it? Is that
The Buster
Poindexter?
Yeah.
All in Hindi. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure what language is. And there's lots of, from that scene, the older women are sort of goofing around in the soccer nets, and it's very cute. So
yeah, for sure.
the credits are worth watching for sure. I was chair dancing. I think it's funny though. They're singing along to the song, and the white actors, all they can do is go hot, 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 and then ole, ole, and then the rest of the stuff they're like blah 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 blah. And I was like, you could have tried just a little, like, come on. But
depends on how much notice they had.
I suppose there wasn't a phonetic translation, so they just did their best. But well, what else? What are we missing talking about? There's a lot of fun little performances and a lot of funny lines. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff where you're not going to get it if you're not British or if you're not Indian or Sikh or, if you're not in this community, you're not going to get it. And I would, like with many things, I want a DVD commentary track where someone is like, this is funny because blah, 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 blah,
Yeah. And it's a movie that is hitting multiple.
Mm-hmm.
It's like showing a British person a movie about like the American South, like it's about America, and it's about the South. Like you just went like 2 layers deep, and now do an additional layer on top of that, and you've got,
or similar to like when they showed when they did Hamilton on stage in the UK. There's a line about, they talk about John Adams, and someone says John Adams doesn't have a real job anyway. In the UK, they had to say vice presidency isn't a real job because people don't necessarily know, so things like that. Like you need the explanation of that kind of thing. But so I'm sure there's stuff that I'm not getting, but it's a lot of sweet moments and fun moments, and it's just worth watching, I think.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say about this movie is, and this is something I've always thought about this actor, but never, I'm rarely reminded of his existence.
Yeah.
Jonathan, not Rhys Davies.
Yeah.
Jonathan
Rhys Myers. Yeah.
He has this kind of, and this is like a thing in my head, like an archetype of person or something. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of model level, like Greek statue face.
Oh, the cheekbones. Yeah.
That looks good still.
Yeah.
But looks like a train wreck when it's moving.
He is kind of menacing looking.
Yeah, like his eyes get real squinty when he's talking, and his mouth is crooked. But like just a shot of him with like you put a shot of him at the beach looking out into the distance with a cologne bottle in the lower corner, and you're going to sell 1 million.
Absolutely.
But the moment that he's because he's got the eyes that are like, off like a weird,
very light,
like a light blue that's almost like
he's got crazy eyes, Neil McDonough face, and also Cillian Murphy too. Yeah. I don't know if his eyes are especially light, but he has that very, very striking eyes, but he at some point he goes over to see Jess's parents and he knocks on the you might think he was there to kill you, because he's just very menacing looking.
Like he looks like a Greek sculpture when he's still, but the moment that he starts moving, it's just something. it's like there's a piece missing.
He has the opposite problem of me.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I think of like David Beckham that way too. They're like, just shut up and just look into the middle distance and you're good.
Yeah.
But like he doesn't, I don't mean for him that he comes apart when he starts moving his mouth. I just mean there are certain people that have that face that is just like, you're carved out of granite.
Yeah.
And
there's
like you should have lived 500, 1,000 years ago so they could make marble sculptures of you.
There are some people who have many, many talents and some people who have one, and that one is standing still.
Yes.
And so I think that mentioning him reminds me of one last thing. And this is one thing that I think Americans, a lot of them would just go over their heads. At one point in a match, Jess has a collision with the player from another team, and the other player calls her a slur, calls her a packy, which is I don't even know how that came about, but anyway, it's one of those things where if you're American, that doesn't hardly registers. And she's very upset, and she tells Joe about it, and she says you probably don't know what that feels like, and he says, oh, I'm Irish, of course I know what it feels like, which I get, but also I'm like, that's not the same thing at all.
It's
even as an Irish American who knows a little bit about the discrimination that Irish people faced, I'm like, that's because you can
less
blend
than 5
physically.
Years post Troubles here, right? Like
no,
an Irish wasn't it like
but
97 or something?
Not in England.
But I'm saying like,
well,
that was still like I'm saying like, I imagine that certain Irish people were probably viewed as troublemakers and unwelcome.
I'm sure it is worse than I realize, but it is not the same as
I agree
at
with
50
what you're
paces.
saying.
You cannot.
I agree with what you're saying. It's not unlike when we were talking earlier about the Irish and the Italians and all of that. That pales in comparison to what other the Asian groups and the African groups would later get into. So I wouldn't want a person of Italian descent to go, they discriminated against my people too, to an Asian who literally can trace their lineage back to a World War II internment camp.
Right. Yeah.
Like not the same guy.
Yeah.
They put you in one part of the city. They put us in a camp.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all discrimination and oppression is bad. And we're not trying to declare a winner or anything, but also sometimes like don't put yourself in someone else's shoes and say it's just as bad because it's really not.
Although
anyway,
I do think in some recent years, I think it has been exposed that not unlike America, England has a sort of if you're not us, you're not as maybe as welcome as you should be in our country.
Like we said earlier, electing a head of state of color does not necessarily mean that all racism has gone away. Even having a person of color in your royal family does not indicate that racism has gone away. Not by a long shot. But anyway.
Bend It Like Beckham.
Yes.
Good movie.
Fun movie. Fun. I'm sure there are things that are, a little dated. Like I'm sure all the things about.
The Spice Girls.
Yeah. All the stuff about lesbians in sports and I'm sure if you did that now, then probably Jess and Jules would get together, which I would be fine with. A lot of these things would be handled differently, but it's a product of its time and it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it very much.
Oh yeah, so. It's not even as much. It's very of its time, but it's not as much of a time capsule as I expected it to be. It's not like watching a movie from the 80s and everybody's wearing parachute pants and Adidas tracksuits and stuff. It's not like
brief
that.
Period in the 90s where everyone had pagers. It's not that much of its time. Yeah.
But it's a fun movie. So, definitely take a look.
Thumbs up. Well, folks, we would love to know what you think about this. Do you have any intel on the musical version? And please, can you share clips with us? Or when it was shown on TV in North Korea, I am dying to know more about this. This is my Roman Empire for the week. Those two things. Please let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us in a couple different ways. You can send us an email or you can find us on Facebook. Our handle's the same for both. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. And I believe we have that handle on a couple of social media. Just, I don't know,
Yes,
search.
We're not necessarily
Search.
posting on every social media
You can find us
platform,
lots of
but we have
places.
secured that handle on many.
Maybe
and we
not
will,
maybe not Friendster,
and
but
we,
lots of others.
Friendster. And we will tell you as we start to be
Yes.
active on those platforms.
Yeah. So find us Facebook for sure, or the email is at gmail.com. Also on Facebook, we post links to our newest episodes roughly as they are uploaded. Sometimes we, by which I mean I, are a little behind, but they'll be there. And also, sort of fun stuff that we find out about the movies that we talked about. We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so 2 weeks from today. No matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode. And in 2 weeks, Dave is hosting. What are we watching next time, Dave?
Well, we're going to take a quick, we're going to do a quick twofer. I have a lot of movies that are where I feel like watching the first movie and then bang right afterwards watching the second movie is almost required viewing. And so there are a sequence of movies. I feel like I dropped the ball on this with Gremlins. So I want to correct that. So we're going to do 2 episodes for me, and I have selected to do the Bill and Ted. I was thinking, look, what's the word for 2 movies? A trilogy is 3.
Duo.
Biology. The biology. No, because though there is a third movie.
I was about to say, are we including that or no?
No.
Okay.
I think it's worth watching the third movie, but not for the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to do Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey on the next 2 regularly scheduled episodes.
Okay.
And then we'll get back to you after that. But yeah, so Bill and Ted, Party on Wayne, Party on Garth.
All I know is
that's Wayne's World.
All I know is there's an Iron Maiden joke.
Yes, put them in the Iron Maiden.
Excellent. Yeah.
Excellent.
And Ted's first name is Ted, quote, Theodore. That's all I know.
Yes, Ted Theodore Logan.
Yeah, that's that.
And Bill S. Preston Esquire.
I'm telling you what I know, which is very little. So
you got it.
That's all I got.
You know, the one of them's Keanu Reeves.
Yes, and the other guy did this and was never heard from again.
No, you're about to find out about some of his other stuff.
Okay. I know his name is Alex Winter.
Yes.
That's all I got.
And he has another choice role that will appear on this podcast at some point.
Oh, fun. Okay. Well, then we'll see you in 2 weeks with the Bill and Ted Experience. Which one comes first?
Excellent Adventure.
Their Excellent Adventure. And then the Bogus Journey.
Yes.
Until then, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. What are your opinions on if I karaoke a love song with another woman? Hypothetically.
What song and which woman? And are you staring devotedly into her eyes while you sing it, or
probably not? No.
Okay.
I've had the time of my life.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to sing that. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks.
Have at it.